Well, News Corp publications around the country will donate all sales and advertising proceeds from newspaper sales today to bushfire recovery efforts. The Herald Sun, the Daily Telegraph, the Adelaide Advertiser and Courier Mail have published a 16-page special as part of a week-long series to celebrate and say thank you to our frontline volunteers and heroes who've spent the past weeks and months keeping our communities safe. Joining me now is Andrew Rule from the Herald Sun. Andrew, good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. So can you elaborate on the significance of this campaign?
Well, we thought at News Corp that it was a good idea to do something to show the thankful feelings that most Australians, or all Australians, have towards those volunteers who go towards the danger while most of us are forced to retreat. And so we sent reporters and photographers to the fire grounds. I went to Mallacoota myself with photographer David Caird, and we've compiled a big special which really is a massive vote of thanks.
Andrew, tell us about your experiences, with seeing these brave volunteer firefighters on the front line. You know, they give up their time, they put their own lives in danger, they put their own lives on hold, as a matter of fact, to protect others, and they don't want anything in return.
They don't. I think the volunteer aspect is very touching and very real, and I know there's some debate about this, but I feel that among the volunteers are many extremely experienced people who are experts at what they do because they've fought fires for decades, some of them, and the older ones pass on their knowledge to younger people. And in fact, I was talking to some of the older volunteers and they said their dearest wish is to see some young people stick around and spend more than 3 or 4 years in the CFA and equivalent services so that they can in turn pass it on to others.
Just on your... Sorry, Andrew. On your experiences in Mallacoota, just describe those for our viewers at the moment, because that was, in many ways, is a part of what kicked off international exposure. When you had people stranded on beaches, you had those red sunsets everywhere, and you had all this international help that really started flooding in.
There's no doubt that the images from Mallacoota did spark international attention because it was I've called it in the piece I wrote, the perfect firestorm to get world attention. It had stranded tourists on a beach. It had, the Navy and the Army coming in to rescue them. So it had all the elements of a sort of an heroic rescue scenario. And of course, these days, unlike 1983 and others, everyone has a camera in their pocket. So the images were vivid, they were stark and immediate, and it caught the world's attention. And so we have people in Mallacoota doing, a lot of different wonderful things that are creating images that have gone across the world, and that has sparked a whole wave of sympathy and of donations and of concern. Andrew,
as journalists, we often, parachute into these danger zones. But after a few days, after a few weeks, we leave and we go back to our own lives. While people who are stuck in these places, they have to proceed and they have to rebuild. How do you think the rebuild process will go? Not just for the people of Mallacoota, but for anyone who has been caught up in this awful tragedy long after, attention kind of fades away?
It'll take years, and there's people who will be scarred by this for years, some forever, of course, depending on what they've lost and the effects on them. But just the queue, the waiting for insurance claims to be settled and then to get the suitable builders to build suitable buildings, it will take so long. And some families will crumble under the pressure. Some will, I think, move out or move back to cities or whatever. It will create changes. And I think it'll be years before those places are sort of back to what we'd call normal. And perhaps having had a look at Marysville in Victoria, which was destroyed by fire 11 years ago, I think it takes probably a decade to get it, up and running really well again.
In your piece, Andrew, you say it was the towering inferno meets Dunkirk with a touch of Jaws as well. So very dramatic images that you were caught up in. I'm wondering, throughout your time there, is there any one image, is there any one comment or one story that kind of stuck with you?
Well, what I like about it after the event is that people of different views and of different, different sort of income levels, different attitudes, they're all coming together to help each other. It does engender a big spirit of cooperation and overall friendship, I think. I mean, there will be, that will alter over time as it does, but they're pulling together. In Mallacoota, where there was no loss of life, which is brilliant, I detected a note of relief rather than grief. I thought people were overall fairly optimistic and pretty cheerful about getting on with it. That probably will alter for some people over time as the reality sinks in.
All right, Andrew Rule from the Herald Sun, really appreciate your time this morning, and that is the campaign, Australia Unites. There's a special tribute edition, not just today, News Corp newspapers, but throughout the week as well. It's a good campaign, and yes, all of our thoughts are with and will continue to be with our brave volunteer firefighters who are doing such a tremendous job. Andrew Rule, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.